Hello, welcome to my mid lane tier list for patch 7.35b. Let's get into it, starting with the tier, which there's a lot of low win rate mid laners in Dota currently, which is because there's a few really high win rate ones, which we'll get to. Anyway, starting with Leshrac, the issue with this hero, which is why he's sporting a 41% win rate currently, is that Bloodstone was pretty much the only way to sustain the amount of mana that he costs in farming and in fighting. Bloodstone no longer gives you mana as of the most recent patch in the game. And the reason that they nerfed that is because in 7.35, they made it so that Bloodstone increases the AoE of spells just a bit, which would increase Leshrac's stun, which would subsequently increase the AoE on the shard stuns as well, and his ultimate. And this shit was completely bonkers. So they nerfed him and they nerfed the Bloodstone. And now Leshrac is not good. Dazzle, this hero was very toxic in the previous patch, and as a result, he got nerfed. His Q is now deniable, which is an issue because this is the main way that you kill people in the early game prior to getting your Aghanim Scepter as a core. And speaking of being a core, his ultimate no longer reduces the cooldown on items. Cores farm items. They get gold and they farm items, and lowering the cooldown on them is what was fucking good about being a core Dazzle. So that's no longer a thing, and Dazzle core is also no longer a thing. Dragon Knight, I will say that I was wrong about my predictions for this hero at the start of the patch. I thought that his Q applying the corrosive breath from his ult was going to be something that was very impactful and would affect his win rate positively. It didn't seem to do much, and I think a big issue with this hero is that it's very hard to burst people in this current meta, and that's kind of how he plays. There's a lot of Glimmer Capes, there's a lot of Solar Crests, Mage Slayers, like these items that make it really hard to kill somebody full to zero. You want sustained damage, and DK doesn't get that until very late in the game. And then also, being a tower pushing hero is not crazy impactful right now. Like, you're going to get all the tier 1s eventually. Even if you don't get the tier 1s, who gives a shit? There's so much map to farm. It's not like the previous patch where you could take the tier 1s and then limit the enemy team's places to farm. Dota's just not like that right now. You got to kill people. Necrophos. Oh, man, my boy. Yeah, they've really nerfed this hero. So they've just, overall, like, you can look at the list here. They've nerfed all of his shit. His Aghanim Scepter does less damage. His Q costs more mana. It feels bad. It feels really, really bad. And then also, I think Necro wants to play against certain heroes in the mid lane. Tiny, for example, like some melee strength guy, which in the previous patch was like every mid laner was Earth Spirit, Primal Beast, Tiny, etc. Tiny actually was not in the last patch. But anyways, there were other heroes that were, Kunkka is another good example. Those heroes are not super popular mid right now. Tinker, they nerfed the range on his Q and his W, and that is very noticeable. It makes this early game a lot harder. It makes getting to the Blink Dagger into Shiva's Guard timing a lot harder to get to, and I think that's where the hero feels like shit already, or he already did feel like shit, and his win rate is very bad because of that. On top of that, there are some very popular heroes in the meta that are extremely good against Tinker. Zeus is popular, it's a hard counter. Spectre is popular, it's a hard counter. Even something like Faceless Void is good at catching out a Tinker in the trees. Tinker feels very bad. Okay, D tier. There's actually not a lot of D tier heroes because the ones that I wanted to put in the D tier for the mid lane ended up having such a low win rate that they belonged in the shit tier. So let's begin with Batrider. Okay, so this hero is actually very good currently. It is a god tier support in both 4 and 5 position. But I think as a mid laner, not a lot of people are playing around Sticky Napalm. It's more about the other abilities, which are better for side laning. And I think for what you want the hero to do in the game, aka get a Blink Dagger, Force Staff, lasso people in on a low cooldown, that can be achieved from the support roles. And Bat's laning is a lot weaker because he doesn't really like playing around the Napalm. He's a way better support in lanes. Shadow Fiend. Okay, so I actually wanted to put this hero in the shit tier. I will say, a couple of weeks back, I would say this was a shit tier hero. The win rate was really low. People were feeding relentlessly on it. It felt really bad. But then in 7.35b, they buffed Manta Style, and everybody was already going Manta Style in SF. That was the build. I don't fully understand it because I'm not a mid laner. I don't do this build. I still build fucking Guardian Greaves and play him with Refresher Orb and play him off lane. Doesn't matter. That's really hurting my credibility here. I do that for memes. But basically, this Manta style build was trending. They buffed Manta style. I think people also started realizing that this Manta style build was good and started doing it. And so the win rate has gone up and the hero looks a little bit better. I mean, I still have it in D tier. I don't think it's very good, but it's passable. It's playable. But you still run into all the same issues where you're just kind of playing a not great carry from the mid lane. You're not really going to be super active early and do a lot of stuff for your team. You're not really abusing any of the new items that are super OP like Mage Slayer in the current patch. So it's just okay. Monkey King, this is a hero that abuses Mage Slayer. However, I think this is very similar to Batrider, where I would much prefer to see him as a support position hero. They gave him quite a few buffs in the recent couple of patches because people have been complaining about how dogshit Monkey King is for a while. But I would say the main reason that you would want to pick this hero mid is to counter melee heroes like Ember Spirit or Void Spirit, for example. Without spoiling too much about the S tier, fuck it, Ember's S tier. There are certain heroes that you can pick Monkey King against that he will completely feed in the game and in the lane. That's a huge risk. And I don't think he counters Ember Spirit in Ember's current iteration, because Ember is just insanely OP that Monkey King's tier can rise. And then Void Spirit's like not a good hero. These heroes that are countered by Monkey King either aren't countered by him, even though they were historically, because they're just OP now, or they're not good. So Monkey King's niche as a mid laner is not huge. Omni Knight, very similar, where he counters a lot of the same heroes Monkey King does, except some of the heroes, Ember Spirit, like I said, they're so good that Omni doesn't function as like that much of a counter to them. I will say the changes to him, they changed Repel, so it actually does magic immunity now, or spell immunity, debuff immunity, whatever the fuck they call it now. And then they changed his ult so that it is not AoE, it is single target and has 2 charges. These changes can be good depending on the game, but I think that these changes also make him a better support than it does make him a mid laner. And I don't necessarily mean that he needs to be played in like a support position. I mean, in a kind of support role. And so if mid lane became a support role, which has occasionally happened on a patch by patch basis, or it's more common that an offlaner will play a support role, buying like the Vlads and the auras and that sort of bullshit, then Omni Knight might be better for those roles when the supporting style is popular, but it's not right now, from the mid lane at least. Okay, let's fucking move on. C tier, Outworld Devour. This hero was very overpowered at the start of 7.35, in particular because Parasma is an OP item, and still is an OP item, and this hero really loves building Witchblade. On top of that, they increased the AoE on his ult, which was pretty cool because that shit slaps really hard. But then in 7.35b, they nerfed Arcane Orb damage, they nerfed the damage on his Astral Imprisonment, and they made it so that you no longer take damage from his ultimate, the debuff that it leaves on you. So all of these things made him fall from S tier, which, thank God, he's fucking cancer, to B tier, which he is still decent. Snapfire. So this hero recently got the big thing I would say is extra damage on her, whatever the hell it's called, where she shoots really quickly. Little Shredder, that's what it's called. Which in the mid lane is the thing that you're using to murder people. And Diffusal Blade into Disperser is an incredibly powerful build on any hero, pretty much. And she loves to do this because she is a universal hero that gives a lot of stats. And then also, this applies to Little Shredder, which, like I just said, got buffed. So she is a decent mid laner. However, I will say that you need to be good at it. This is not an easy hero to play from the mid lane. You have to also be addicted to getting level 25, because that's when she really comes online. It is a menace. It used to be level 20, now it's level 25, because of the talent swap that they did. They also gave extra damage to Mortimer's Kisses, which is always fun. Wind Ranger. So this is also a Diffusal Blade, Disperser building hero in the mid lane that is universal. I will say Disperser is less value on her because she's already hasted movement speed with the Wind Run ability, and so the Disperser giving you full move speed is not a huge deal on her. However, Power Shot now slows. That's a pretty big deal. You can use that to set up for kills and be really annoying in the laning phase, but I will say that Wind Ranger is more of a carry hero right now. I know, like, at least a week ago, people were considering her to be an S tier carry. Right now, it's maybe A tier just because other heroes are trending in the carry role that seem to be a little bit more appeased. Something like Meepo, for example, is a fairly, like, this week type carry, which I think that hero would do very well against Wind Ranger in a carry-to-carry matchup, so that might have changed. But this is a mid lane tier list. She's about C tier, I would say. Visage, similar to Snapfire in the sense that if you are a Visage specialist, it's a good Visage patch because Vlad's is a solid item. It just got buffed. There's no recipe. It can be disassembled. Not that you're going to disassemble it on Visage or anything. And then Drums is a good item also, and Visage is a hero that loves to build drums. Visage is solid, but you need to be a Visage player for sure. Magnus, so the recent change that they gave to him, the big one is they gave damage on skewer based on how far you skewer the enemy. Now, I thought this was going to absolutely break the hero. It definitely did make him good, like he is good tier for sure. But my take on this is that if you were to successfully skewer somebody on a mid-mag, they were probably already going to die. And so that hasn't changed because getting skewered out of position based on the nature of it, like you're fucking dead. It could almost do no damage and you would still be just as likely to die. So it wasn't that impactful. And the Universal Hero, Harpoon, bullshit Magnus already got nerfed in a previous patch. That's still kind of the same thing that you would do as a mid-mag. If you're going for like Ether Lens and playing essentially like an offlane mag from the mid lane, then yes, you're benefiting more from this new skewer change, but then you're kind of playing offlane from mid, which is a slight grief. So it's in a weird state, and I still think it's fine. I still think it's good. Death Prophet, basically this hero is like a flex mid. If you're a really good Death Prophet offlane player and you're just stuck playing mid, this is a great hero to play there. It's good against certain mid laners who like to harass the shit out of you. Queen of Pain, Visage, especially because you can tear through Visage's shield. Like in certain matchups, it is very good. And the recent change that they made to her was they made it so that her silence now slows, which is super impactful, especially because you're going to be building a Shivas. So you have a slow on top of a slow. They're pretty much slow to a fucking halt. And it's good. But I think it's more of an offlaner currently than a mid laner. Razer, probably the same in terms of he's more of an offlaner than a mid laner. So the change that they made to him is his static link, or the big change they made to him is his static link now lasts longer, but it drains slower, which in my opinion is much better for side laning because then you can actually use that extended drain duration. The build on him, I'm seeing a lot of people play carry Razer. People are going for like Manta, Maelstrom. You could probably still get away with that from the mid lane, but I would say that this hero is another one like Death Prophet where it's just good in general as a hero. Like it's a decent hero, and because of that, it makes it like an okay mid, especially if you are specialized in it. Primal Beast, so this hero was like the hero of the previous patch with the Blade Mail Heart build. That's still a fine build, although most people are going for like a Shiva's Guard. That's more of an offlane build that people do. If you do that on a mid laner, it's still fine, but the build-up to the Veil feels really good in side lanes because you need that extra regen, whereas a mid laner, you're getting regen from the runes already, so that is just kind of like a no-value benefit that was added for these other roles that doesn't work for the mid lane. Primal Beast also got a couple of nerfs. One of them was his ult. The cooldown on it was nerfed, so that way you can't just use it willy-nilly, and you can feel that in the games, but Primal is still a good hero. It's still fine. I think it's just a bit better of an offlaner now. I thought it was actually S tier a couple of weeks ago. Now, for offlane, it's probably like A or B tier. Pugna, this is another hero which happens a lot in the D and the C tier for these roles. He's more of a support. I really like Pugna 4. I really like Pugna 5. People are playing him like a cuck, getting a Glimmer Cape and healing people and saving people, and it's still very decent. A little bit less good now that Disperser is a very popular build item. But from the mid lane, you are still doing a shitload of damage to towers, which, like I mentioned, for DK is not the most hugely impactful thing, but it is pretty fucking annoying to have a guy chipping away at your tower mid. Like, it does bring you back to the lane over and over again. They've increased the damage on his ult a bunch. They have removed all of the negative effects on your teammates with the W. So, Pugna, his Q does more tower damage than it did in the past. Like, he's still decent. He's not Imba. Like, when we get to the Imba mids, you'll really understand why Pugna he's good. He just doesn't get to be up there with the ridiculous mids because they're fucking crazy, man. Void Spirit, they just gave him some stat game buffs. They gave him a little bit of extra shield on his shield ability, damage reduction per hero, which is nice. They nerfed all of the heroes that were going for like the Harpoon, Manta style, universal bullshit. I don't think Void Spirit has exactly recovered since then, where people were actually playing him as a carry and bursting people with this ridiculous base damage you get from all the stats. He still has issues from then in terms of having the ability to burst people without items in the early game especially, but he is getting to the point where he is playable again, especially in certain matchups. Like, I know people really like him against Puck, for example, because you can drop the Remnant on the phase shift and get the Puck when he or she comes out of said phase shift. Moving on up, ladies and gentlemen, to the B tier, we have Huskar. So this hero is good when he counters a lot of the popular mid laners. Guess what? Ember Spirit is S tier, so he counters all of the popular mid laners. On top of that, they increased recently, not in the 7.35 patch, the duration on his Burning Spears. That ability is fucking broken since then. He has been good. He was good before that because the Aghanim Scepter is incredible once you get to that point, and his laning, because of this change, and the fact that he's good against a lot of the popular heroes, is pretty much guaranteed, except in some cases, which we might get to with the higher tiers. Storm Spirit, so the big change they did to him recently is that they reduced the activation delay on his Q, which is impactful because then it means you can walk into the lane and use it on creeps. It's harder for them to deny you. They've less time to do that. You can pull people into your Remnant and do damage with that easier. You know, you can ball lightning on top of them and then press Q, and then they pretty much can't walk out of it anymore. And then also, Parasma is a busted item. Storm Spirit really enjoyed going for Witchblade before, and of course, he's going to build that into the full Parasma and now be able to, you know, solo kill people. Orchid's also a very good item currently, and obviously Storm Spirit's a big Orchid enjoyer. Kunkka, so they nerfed this hero overall. On the previous patch, Torrent Storm was way more busted. It had more duration. They decreased the potential spawn radius on the torrents, which I'm fairly sure means that there is a higher chance that they will chain stun somebody, but potentially less coverage during the torrent storm, which I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, could be either a buff or a nerf. They also changed some of his talents. They took away his torrent AoE talent, which makes torrent storm worse, and then gave him a torrent cooldown talent, which actually is pretty insane in the late game. You have torrent up like constantly, especially if you go for an Octarine core. But anyway, Shiva's Guard is a good item. People are going for that on Kunkka sometimes on the mid lane. People are still going for Blade Mail Heart. It's a fine hero. It does very well against Puck, which is a very popular hero. Kunkka's fine. Still kind of exists in the role that he did. He's just not S tier. So Queen of Pain, they nerfed the Aghanim Scepter a little bit. They buffed the mana cost on her Scream of Pain because that's the ability you're probably going to max out first, maybe 2 points in Q, and then max out the Scream of Pain, which costs 10 less mana now, which, considering how much you're spamming this for farming, it is impactful. But the big reason I think Queen of Pain is solid right now is because she is an amazing Mage Slayer builder, or what she wants to do, the Mage Slayer build enables her to do. Like, you can get a Mage Slayer, get a Sanjin Kaya, get the Aghanim Scepter, and you can just jump in there and be incredibly fucking tanky. Anytime Queen of Pain is able to do that on a patch, she feels very strong. Anytime she's not able to do that on a patch, well, you have to jump in on her anyway with Blink, and you just kind of die. So she feels decent. Tiny, oh my god, they gave this hero so many buffs. They increased the damage on Avalanche, they increased the damage on Toss, they increased the damage you get on Toss from his ultimate, they reduced the cooldown on his tree grab, they increased the damage that you get from throwing the tree once you pick up the Aghanim Shard. Like, they just buffed the hell out of this hero. And because of that, I think he's amazing. He's a very high tier 4 position. He's a decent offlaner. I've seen some people play it as a carry. People are going for Mage Slayer on Tiny, and Mage Slayer is a busted item as well. Tiny is very solid. Maybe there's an argument that he's A tier. When I get to the A and the S tier, you'll understand why some very good heroes are in the B tier, just because the good mids are like very good right now. Keeper of the Light, this hero has got a lot of buffs, with regards to the talents. I'm not going to read all of them out. They're on the screen right now. Hopefully, if Semper edits that in here. There's a lot of them. But the big changes they made to him is they increased the illuminate speed when he is using the ultimate. And of course, that is going to be all the time when you're playing him as a core. This is genuinely impactful. You feel it when he runs to a side lane and fucking kills you. Vessel's a good item, and Orchid is a good item. A lot of these like single target items that are buffed by the extra range you get from the ult feel very good. But my favorite thing about Keeper of the Light in the mid lane currently is that he doesn't really lose lane to anything. And there are certain mid laners right now that are like cheese picks where the game just ends if you get a good lane for them. And Caudle kind of prevents that, which feels really nice. And then also they made it so that his Aghanim Scepter now deals a little bit of damage when it pulls people in, which is good because damage is great, but also cancels Blink Daggers, which is really nice. And then movement abilities as well. TA, in the recent letter patch, they increased Psyblade's range and they reduced the mana cost on Refraction. They did a couple of other changes. I don't think they're hugely impactful because they're regarding the Ags, which people don't build. But these small changes to TA, I mean, she was already good. Now she's even better, are good. And she also, like, if you can get her versus a Zeus, for example, there are some counterpick matchups where TA will have a very good game. You just get a carry from the mid lane. Viper. So in the 7.35 patch, they put the break on his ult instead of Nether Toxin, which means, motherfucker, you can't walk out of it. So he is like the ultimate break hero currently, which obviously is going to have a very powerful niche. If some fucker picks Timbersaw or Huskar or some hero that just needs to be broken, well, I got the solution for you. It's this guy. He's really boring, but he's very good, despite some subsequent nerfs after the 7.35 patch because, of course, he was too busted. Zeus. So this hero probably has the lowest win rate in the B tier, so I'm going to fucking defend him here, okay? Stop going right-click Zeus. He's good to just play normally. He's good. And I'm not saying right-click Zeus is dog shit. It's fine, but it's not an every game thing. Admit it. You're doing it because it's fun. I do it. I'm not saying I don't. I'm not absolved of blame here. I do it because but I know I'm doing it for fun. But some games, you have a right-click carry. You don't need another one on the mid lane. You just need a goddamn spellcaster. And Ethereal Blade was buffed, and now is Aether Lens. How long were Zeus players begging for Aether Lens to build into something after they've removed it from Octarine Core? It does now. It's Ethereal Blade. It builds into something that makes you fucking ethereal and counter all these heroes that can jump on top of you. Just build that instead of Manta style, for God's sakes. It's good. Zeus is good. He's been getting tons of buffs, and I do think the carry Zeus build is sometimes good if you have a carry that's not a right clicker, a carry that's not really gonna, like, if it's a semi carry, like a Wind Ranger or something, then maybe you can go for it, especially if your game is really good. Sure. But normal spellcasting Zeus is really good right now. Octarine, Aghanim Scepter, the stun talent for his Lightning Bolt, all of this is really good, which, by the way, Lightning Bolt now deals twice the amount of damage to creeps. Amazing for farming. But stop going Lightning Hands, for God's sakes. Please, PSA. Please. Moving on to the A tier. We have Linda. So, this hero from the mid lane is still a lot of the time building into the Aghanim Scepter, Aether Lens, Boots of Travel bullshit into Ethereal Blade, which now builds from the Aether Lens, and absolutely fucking one-shotting people. But there's also another build where people are going for Gleipnir, which is the classic Lina carry build, and they changed her talents so that you get crit on her Dragon Slave at level 25, which is very good for damaging people. And then at level 20, you're also gaining more supercharged stacks from her ulti, which means you Laguna somebody and then you're attacking crazy fast, which makes her an excellent carry. So you now have multiple options for what to do in the mid lane. Both builds are fine. The Ethereal Blade, Aghanim Scepter build got even better because of how Ethereal Blade builds. She's good. She's solid. She beats everything in lane as well, or at least 50-50's the lane. Winter Wyvern. This hero's crazy. I thought it might have been S tier. I'm still not entirely convinced enough to put it in the S tier, but when I play against it, good God, it feels just toxic, man. Just toxic. People are going for Mage Slayer, into Witchblade, into Parasma, into, Aghanim Scepter, Dragonlance, and you show up on the map anywhere, and from 2 screens away, she's attacking you for your entire HP pool. If you try to jump her, she just ults you. It doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel fun. It's a universal hero, so it lanes very well. Wyvern is good. Very good. Lone Druid has gotten nerfed over and over and over again. The most recent change that I can remember is they nerfed his heal a little bit, where the bear doesn't heal him as much in the earlier levels. I have barely, pun intended, felt the impact of that. Diffusal Blade into Disperser is a popular build on every hero, and that's obviously very good on Lone Druid because he was just rushing Diffusal on the bear. Manta, Harpoon, Universal Hero bullshit is still good. The Mage Slayer build is also good on the bear if it's a game that calls for it. Like if you're against like a TA, for example, you can get the Mage Slayer to apply the damage over time to damage her. There's a lot of things you could do on this hero. It's got a crazy high win rate. It's still broken. Pangolier, they increased the AoE on his Swashbuckle, which you can definitely feel, especially because when you get the Aghanim Scepter, that extra AoE is also applied to the swashes on that. But the main reason that I would say this hero is busted is because Disperser is a broken item, and Pango is arguably the best diffusal hero in Dota. So, of course, he's good. Invoker, they basically just haven't nerfed this hero enough. He feels like he's currently the best ganking mid laner. He does very well against all the other mid laners because nobody likes to sit mid and just get mana drained over and over again. Wasp Wex is still the build that people are going for. Faceless Void is very popular, so you can get an Aghanim Scepter and Cataclysm people. There's a lot of stuff you can combo with. Sunstrike at level 1 does a shitload of damage. Invoker is still excellent. And the laning is crazy because his stat gains are very good. He just got buffed on strength gain. He's a universal hero. He's very tanky, by the way. Very tanky. Puck. So Puck is very good because Parasma is broken, and Puck loves building Witchblade. On top of that, there is a Maelstrom build that is abusing the fact that your Dream Coil Aghanim Scepter now applies attacks based on your attack speed rather than at a fixed rate, which I've actually seen people run Puck carry, and it's a bit sus, but that's how good the Aghanim Scepter is now, that people are, running it as a carry. So the builds are endless on Puck mid. Timbersaw. So I would say actually the big change for him is that reactive armor, not only is it better in general, it's better at level 1, which really helps him if he's in a tough matchup, especially in a side lane, actually. But even in the game, he also gains 3 stacks of it per hero hit rather than 2. So this ability is now maxing out very quickly when heroes are hitting you in fights. So you get some Veil of Discord into Shiva's Guard build, and that gives you enough sustain and tankiness to survive a few hits, and all of a sudden you're maxed out on reactive armor again, which did not seem like it happened on the previous patch at all. This ability was completely shit. With that being said, also there's a build on this hero that is Shiva's into Blink Dagger and just playing to like burst people with the Q and the W, maxing that out, sometimes even completely skipping reactive armor. And that build is very strong in general, not just in the mid lane. But in the mid lane, Timber does very well against the popular mid laners, which we'll get to, or the S tier mid laners that are really broken. And so that's the main reason I think Timber is a good mid laner, is because he's a counter to pretty much all the S tier mid laners, which, like I said, we'll get to right now. Finally, let us talk about the broken heroes. All 3 of these S tier mid laners have something like a 55% win rate, which is not okay. Let's start with Ember Spirit. He's probably the least broken and most normal out of all of these, which is shocking because he's good in pretty much any game and he does so much. The hero has a crazy amount of utility. They changed his Searing Chains so that it hits 3 targets instead of 2, which is crazy for team fighting, and also just being more likely to hit the target that you want. They increased the radius on his Flame Guard. They increased the damage on his Sleight of Fist. Mage Slayer is broken, and the Mage Slayer plus Flame Guard plus the level 10 talent to gain extra damage reduction on the Flame Guard. People are doing this, and he feels unkillable. You just get in there in fights and make a ton of space, Searing Chaining 3 people at a time. It's insane. The only downside that this hero has, the only one, is that heroes that are extremely good against him in lane are strong. But he's so strong, it doesn't even matter. That's insane to me. That's insane. Meepo. So they changed Poof so that instead of dealing pure damage, it deals magic damage, and then it deals more damage, which means on creeps, it's better for farming because their magic resistance is garbage. On heroes, I think it's about the same, if not a little bit better than it was before, depending on, what items they have, but generally better. They also increased the duration on Mega Meepo, which makes it so that these counters like Wyvern and Earthshaker, etc., do not matter for him as much. In fact, I've seen these crazy Meepo players be like, no, Meepo counters Wyvern. You just keep the main Meepo out, you press Mega Meepo, it completely wastes the curse, etc. Dig is also a very powerful thing, but the biggest reason, probably, I would say, that Meepo is strong is that not only was he strong before, but Disperser on him is fucking crazy. Think about it, man. You are AoE making everything around you that's allied max move speed. The Meepo has 4 of himself, or 5. Like, all of them go hasted. It's crazy. And it gives tons of stats. It's such an efficient item on this hero. And finally, Arc Warden, the hero that I'm probably the most sick of. Good lord, I'm barely going to try to break down the hero for you because it's very confusing. Actually, I'll give you the TLDR of it. Basically, the Spark Wraith, if you're on Dire, it works more quickly. It hits more quickly. And then also, Spark Wraith does 1.4x damage to creeps, which means you can easily kill range creeps. Like, I swear to God, every time I lane against this guy, I can't deny range creeps against him, ever. The Spark Wraiths just fucking one-shot them at such a low level. It's stupid. But the thing is, and I was thinking, like, okay, so this hero is only good on Dire, right? Wrong. Because on the mid lane, you're getting 6 so quickly that you get the clone, and the clone has the opposite effects. So it really doesn't matter what side you're on for the mid lane. The hero is going to kill you with the Spark Wraith and the fact that they proc quicker when you're on Dire, whether he is Dire or not, because at 6 on either side, he's going to get the benefits of that Dire buff anyway. And the hero's late game is insane, as it always has been. There's a few builds people are doing on him. The Gleipnir Midas bullshit is still good. There's a lot of people going Blade Mail Vessel because for some reason you duplicate and get infinite Vessel charges, which is really crazy. And then the Blade Mail makes it a pain in the ass to turn and kill the clone. It gives him tankiness. It makes it so he can actually get in there with the main hero, which is great because the clone deals reduced damage if you're not around the main hero. People are not playing this hero like a bitch anymore. They're not playing Arc Warden on one side of the map farming, and then he sends the clone somewhere else. That's not what he's about. He's getting in there with both of the guys, which, by the way, you can now summon the clone like right on top of somebody. You target where it actually goes rather than just spawning on top of the Arc Warden, which is one of the most annoying things. I get dove by this hero all the time in ways that shouldn't be possible. The hero's completely busted. It's got such a high win rate. Please nerf it, Valve. I'm begging you. Anyway, that's the whole list. Who's a good Leshrac? Yeah, you're a good horse. You fucking suck. See you.